So in this video, I go through S-Class Pete Act 2. I was finally able to finish it, but it did take a while. This is the matches done at 2 times the speed in order to accommodate how much phone space I have. The teams in Act 2 were a lot tankier. It was a lot more difficult in order to battle through these teams because there were a lot of premier tunes, and they ended up using S-Pete as the lead. I found the 2 strategies that I used the most when attacking these teams in Act 2 either involved bringing in my normal raid team and bringing in an extra attacking tune like Michelle in order to give my whole team that attacking and AP bonus, just like my original Michelle does, or bringing in a defensive tune like Lydia, who is able to revive my teammates as they are killed. I found that by bringing in an anchor like Lydia, I was able to have more control over the match, although it was a little riskier because I let the match drag on. And when you have tunes like Tobin on the other team that get more powerful with on a roll over time, it can be a little challenging. So to be honest, I'm not exactly sure how Scopely expects free-to-play and light spenders to beat this roadmap. And there's really no incentive to beat it either. You get 25 blue keys for completing the first act, and 25 blue keys to complete the second act. This doesn't even get you close to even 5-star Pete, and what are these blue keys going to be used for if you're a free-to-play or light spender? You're not going to be pulling much, so I'm not sure what their thought process was on this matter. All these roadmaps basically cost a lot of energy and a lot of time with very little reward. There is no incentive for me to really complete this other than me wanting to show you guys the difficulty level of this and I guess the use of S-Pete, because he is actually very challenging to beat, even just as the leader of these interesting and different teams. I honestly spent way too much time trying to complete these stages, and I could have spent my time just doing other roadmaps in order to try and complete that Pathways mission where you have to do, I think it's like 739 roadmap stages, and then you get, it's either bloody bandages or broken Lucille's. But the point is, I could have spent my time and my energy doing something else, and I would have benefited a lot more from it, because from this, again, I'm not getting anything out of it, except, woohoo, I did it. It's not worth it. So what I found most challenging about Act 2 was definitely Stage 4, which was the second to last stage. I spent way too much time on that stage. I failed probably 6 or 7 times, and I got lucky on the last run through. I think I ended up impairing most of them on the first turn, which allowed me to get my rushes up and prevent them from applying a lot of damage to my team. Some of my faction mates who ended up completing Act 2 Stage 4, one of them used triple Zax in order to beat it, and that was just maiming them to death. And Pete recovers maim, so I'm not sure how many rounds it took, but it wouldn't surprise me if they just autoed it and left it to the side for about 20 minutes. I ended up trying a variety of different strategies to beat this Stage 4. It doesn't look that difficult, like the team itself. You know, your Zachary's tough, your Negan's tough because it prevents you from rushing a lot, except his defense is fairly high, so you can rush him with most tunes and not get payback. Denise, you know, she was kind of like a second-rate tune to come out. Douglas, free-to-play tune, but good guardian with a good healing factor and taunt. And then, of course, S-Pete, with everything that he has, where he's a jack of all trades, but a master of none. So in this case, I got really close, but when I rushed with Michelle, I ended up getting payback, and that decimated my team. It pretty much ended my run there, and it was over. So I tried again, and I tried a different type of team. I thought that maybe a tune like Tara, who was on a roll, would be able to take out a line of them if Dale defense downed them and if she was at 120% attack. And I brought in Eric and Lydia as 2 anchors, but it just wasn't enough firepower and control. It's really difficult to find the right combination of tunes, and as you just saw, I ended up taking out Negan, but received payback. I was able to revive my Tara, but now I'm down 2 tunes, and I'm relying on Lydia to recover them, and I'm again fighting an uphill battle. I got them down to 3 tunes, but both Pete and Denise are able to revive teammates. Douglas applies that Guardian Shield and taunts with control, as well as gives plus 50% defense to all teammates. See, at the moment it looks pretty good, but things change so fast, especially when you have revivers who can revive multiple tunes at a time. In one of my run-throughs, I did try to bleed out this team, but was also unsuccessful. I just wasn't able to stack the bleed fast enough, as well as control Zachary, because when Zachary rushes, he applies 1000 maim, minus 20 AP to all tunes, and recovers all teammates from all penalties. So this is bleed, this is burn, this is taunt, stun, impair, confuse, defense down, attack down. It's just everything, and there's nothing really you can do about it but persist. So this is where I was finally able to beat it. As you see, all the opponents are impaired, so this helped me greatly at the start of the match. And the way that my rushes went, I was able to take out 2 important tunes on the defensive team right away. I was able to follow up by killing the next reviver, which was S. Pete, and then I was just left with Zachary and Negan, which is still no daunting task because I can't rush on Negan unless I want to trigger payback, which would put me in the same situation as I'd been in the past few times. And as you just saw, I ended up rushing and I received payback from Negan. Thankfully, Zach remains impaired almost the whole time, and by bringing in Lydia, I was able to revive any tunes that ended up dying. Again, I do not recommend you spend your time, effort, or energy on these stages. There is no incentive really to finish them. There's a bit of gear, but there's not much. And I just think you could be doing something else, anything else, even just getting off a game and going outside. I found it funny that the last stage ended up being a lot easier than the second last stage. Axel is a pretty good tune, and so is Roxy for survivability. They're the 2 dual specialists. Like, you have Ajax, a really good shield. You have Pete, who kind of does everything. Guardian, revive, heal, maim recovery, leadership skill too. Holly is a good tune to have here as well, being a guardian, as well as her rush gives elusive to all other teammates except for herself, so there's no AP gain. Roxy just is a tune that can survive. I rely on defense down, so Roxy can't stop me as much because I don't use an attack up. And Axel just ends up being impaired most of the time. So although he has beheading, so he can execute as well as decapitate at the same time, he doesn't really affect my team. I think he does decapitate my Magna, but it's so late in the game that it doesn't really affect me. So once I took out Pete and Holly, the rest of the match became a lot easier because those 2 were the only revivers on this team. So for the rest of this, I could really just focus on, killing them. The one issue that I did have was Ajax rushing, and that was a taunt as well as a healing factor of like 75% to self, but it didn't really make a difference in the end. I was still able to make my way through this stage, and Michelle is actually one of the key tunes on my roster for this because she applies a lot of damage, bleeds, as well as stuns. Thanks again for watching and listening.